All we have is this moment, and I think we live our lives staring at the future under the impression that it's guaranteed and that we're even going to be alive tomorrow. And there should still be some aspect of, like really being in this moment now and really reveling in the fact that you're here now through a series of trials and tribulations. But here you are now. You're living a life. That's beautiful.
Welcome to the Facing Love podcast. This is Nuna speaking.
And this is Jordi, and we are here to open up conversations about the lessons and importance of difficult emotional states,
How to navigate through them with more awareness and compassion,
and to bridge the gap created by the illusion of separation.
So what are we talking about today, Nuna?
Today we're talking about how there's this feeling that we all hate, I think. It's the feeling of feeling. It's the feeling of feeling behind in life. Like, oh my God, I'm not where I'm supposed to be yet. What am I doing with my life? I have no plans. I have no job. I have no house. I have no kids. I have no husband. Which I can already say something about this. Like, let's just immediately. The feeling behind in life and this, job, kids, house, is such a heteronormative idea that has been,
handed down.
Yeah, and it's like, I read this amazing article that really opened my eyes, and it was talking about how the queer community has really changed this idea of what life is supposed to be like also, because they couldn't have children. It was like they couldn't adopt even, it wasn't, they didn't have those rights. They couldn't get married, all these things. They couldn't buy a house. So they really shifted this idea of what does, having your life together and being there mean.
And the timeline that's assigned to all of us, or that we are socialized with.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, let's get into it.
Let's get into it. I notice even with all of that, we're very progressive and very modern, right? I still feel some sort of pressure that I'm putting upon myself for reasons that I cannot fathom, and reminding myself that I'm extremely young. I'm basically a toddler. I'm a baby. I've just come out the womb. It doesn't help. It's still so, like, there's something in the mind that's like telling me that, I'm not doing something correctly, or that I need to speed up, or that I need to catch up with what? I don't know. But I need to catch up. And I didn't feel this way like so much in my earlier 20s, but now in the mid 20s, all of a sudden I feel this sudden pressure that I put upon myself to just be more than I am at this moment. And it doesn't, like, it comes from like these heteronormative bullshit like expectations,
and also capitalistic.
But I don't even want to do, and the capitalistic ones also, I don't even want to do any of those things. Like, they don't align with my state of being, at least at this moment. But still, I'm like feeling like I need to be more than I am at this moment, and not giving myself a break. And it's very exhausting. Do you experience anything like this on your end?
I do think that also a big part of it is put from our parents because of how their life turned out to be, and maybe also generations before that as well, that by the age that you are 30, you've got to be, you got to have certain things in your life. You got to be at a certain point. You got to have reached certain of your goals and all of these, and maybe even things that are not necessarily your goals, but you have to reach there. So I'm guessing that also it comes from there as well. But yeah, I feel it. I feel it so much, and I know I'm not the only one that these sudden thoughts come into, of like, okay, what am I doing? Where am I going? I don't have the things that I'm supposed to have by now, And it's very interconnected with feeling wanting this need for security, I guess, you know, like feeling like, okay, if I have a house, I guess that okay, I'm there, you know, like I have the house, I have my own house, which means that I'm not behind, and also it means that I'm secure. Like it's this idea of security, maybe, of like, yeah, I have the job, and I have the direction is clear, and I've made, and it's like exceptional, even like
It's exceptional.
it's exceptional, like the progress is exceptional, because I'm looking these days, I look also back into my life, and I think, oh wow, when you look back to 4 years from where you were like 4 years ago, I realize if I really start looking, and I'll be like, oh no, actually I made a lot of progress, like come on man, please give some credit over here. But then it's never enough. It feels like it's not enough. It's not where it's supposed to be. It's too little, you know.
Exactly.
It's still, we're behind, but it's like, behind where?
Exactly. Like, where is the measurement coming from? Like, what are you measuring against? It's completely surreal.
Yeah, I understand that it's good to have a little bit of this, okay, I want to do more, right?
Mm-hmm.
I want to be here by this age, or by this, I have this goal.
Yeah.
But then when that becomes your only way, like that's the only option,
yeah.
then you feel like you're behind.
Yeah.
Because you're not allowing space for, you know, wiggle room.
Yeah, and for the spontaneity of life.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that calmed me down the other day was like thinking about, because I also feels like this sort of impatience, at least within me, of like, I just want to get these things done as early as possible, like beep 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 beep, all of these goals that I have, like I want to get them done like right now, you know, and then I'll feel really good about myself, and I'll just have this high and this self-esteem that's like rock solid. But then it occurred to me, then wouldn't that be like peaking? I would be peaking at this age and that would be that, because I after I complete all of that stuff, what else am I gonna do? And I'll probably come up with new things that I'll want to achieve, and then it'll just be this endless pursuit. But there's no fun also in trying to get it all done.
That's
now,
true.
you know.
It's this
Yeah.
stupid idea that is very true, and I hate it, but I also love, you know, it's the idea of the journey.
The journey.
The journey.
Oh my God.
It's all about the journey. But it's stupidly true that, yeah, if you had, of course, like if you had everything you wanted to do now, it's like, yeah, I would be happy, I guess, sure. Like, of course, like everything goes, why would I not be happy? I would definitely be happy if I had everything that I wanted right now.
Yeah.
But then the happiness would not stay as long as you think it would. And I think there has been studies on this, that, you know, someone wins the lottery or something, or someone gets really amazing, exciting, beautiful, good news that, you know, like the lottery, imagine you win millions.
Yeah.
And then apparently what happens is that your brain, you know, is like, woo, I'm happy, you get all these amazing chemicals. And then within a month, I don't remember, maybe within a month, your brain will go back to its original state. So you gotta make sure that the original state is actually a good one to begin with. You can cultivate that apparently through meditation. You can make that state to be high, you know, like your natural state can be a happy one through practice like meditation.
A place that you like to live in.
Yes.
So that you're not always trying to escape it. Yeah.
Yes. But it's true, like even if you got everything you wanted, you would be happy for like 2 weeks. And then after that, your brain will be like, okay, now I'm bored.
Yeah, exactly. And then that's why we don't notice how far we've come in the past 4 years, like you said, because the past 4 years was just like a series of having these moments of like getting something, and it was like, and then it's like, okay, next thing. and then getting something, and then okay, next thing, and then we just don't remember all of those highs that we've had, and we're like, oh my god, nothing has happened in the past 4 years, what the fuck, you know. Until you like really do some deep inquiry, and you're like, oh my god, like I'm living in so many of my wishes and my achievements and my prayers and so many, and I just don't notice anymore. I'm just sort of sitting in it like, okay. I think also what I'd like inquire, because I like to inquire against myself, or not necessarily against myself, just like towards myself, like, okay, Jordanko, where's this coming from, you know? I think there's like a part of me that gets off of the you know, the feeling not good enough, or the feeling of like I need to be more, because it gives my mind something to be preoccupied with and something to do, because if I wasn't like being so preoccupied with improvement and growth and accomplishment and achieving, you know, capitalism, all of this, I'd be so bored, I think. Well, knowing me, I think I would get extremely bored. Like my mind needs something to be preoccupied with.
It's true, and I think that's true also for a lot of other minds. Like, the challenges are there for contrast anyway. So if you just had everything and you were like, everything is good, everything can't be good all the time also, right? You will become a mush. A mush, like
a mush.
Your brain will be a mush, you know? I don't know about that. Yeah, I don't know. But,
yeah. What are some things that you feel like you're behind on? Or that you are putting pressure on yourself to have had now?
I don't know. Just this idea that life was supposed to look more polished by now. You know, more like...
Polished,
like... not the country. More like... yeah, clean and nice and except, you know, pretty in a sense of
orderly,
like order. Yeah, it was supposed to be like, okay, A, B, and C. We know 1, 2, and 3. You know, it's every day is like that, and now it's just like S, B, and then J somewhere. Anyway,
2, 6, 5.
But yeah,
like
it feels very like, it feels like, okay, now we're here, and then I'm here, and maybe I'll be there, and then, and I guess now I'm doing this, and now it feels a little bit more random than more ordered.
Remember we were talking about this last time we were talking, where I was telling you I was going through this quarter life crisis, and I've been in the trenches, and I've been like really not knowing what to do with myself. And then actually I don't know if I think I told you this, like I was listening to this other podcast where they were talking about, what was it, the paradox of choice.
Yes.
And how now we just have so much option and so many choices that it leaves us in a state of freeze, because the brain is not it can, but it doesn't like to process all these options, because then you have to do all of this pro and cons and like weighing the options and what's the best fit. All of us, because we've advanced so far as a society, we have all of this option of what we could be doing with our lives, and it's the freakiest thing ever. When before there was a bit more of a blueprint, which is a bit more comforting. You just knew what to expect. Yeah. And now you have no clue what to expect, especially now after everything that we've been through since 2020. We really, like, it's settled so deep within us that we have absolutely no clue what to expect. And now we're just sort of going about it day by day. Yeah. Week by week. And it enhances this feeling of like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing with my life, or like...
Yeah.
Like, just this confusion within our generation.
Yeah, this thing that you said makes a lot of sense, because we're taking life week by week, maybe month by month, instead of, okay, this is the next 20 years, to be honest with you. Like, that's how it feels it was.
Yeah.
Because back then it was like, okay, so you studied, you finished school, okay, you're gonna go study, you're gonna get this specific job, you're gonna probably find, as we said, like someone to settle down with, you'll get the house, the job.
Yeah.
And it was also possible because probably of the economy, because of, I don't know, like, there's more people on earth now also. That has an everything plays a role.
Yeah.
Also climate plays, everything plays a role. And
Everything, yeah.
even the ease of migration, the ease of migration, even that plays a role. Like, how people would migrate to other countries, it was much easier than today, like,
It's changed,
Europe
yeah.
and all this stuff. Anyway, so yeah, that makes a lot of sense that now we're taking it more week by week. And even if you wanted to make a at least 5-year plan, you can never know what's
Yeah.
gonna happen because of
Oh my god, yeah.
life. Like, okay, pandemic is one, and then again, I think it's mostly the
Yeah.
economy is not allowing us to make 5-year plans, because I can barely make rent for a month. I can,
Oh my
if I'm
gosh, yeah.
working here a full-time job. This is why I don't get a full-time job, by the way. If I'm working here in Cyprus a full-time job, I can barely make money to pay rent and live, food. Like, my God, life is expensive.
You need like 2 jobs or 3.
But
then
you
can't if
can't,
you're doing
because it's a
full-time.
full-time. Like, I'm working here
Yeah.
full-time, and I'm not gonna say about the more higher paying jobs, because that's not the reality for most of my generation, Anyway, let's not talk about that. I'm gonna cut this part out. But anyway, I'm not gonna go into this. But point is that if I'm working a full-time job here, my savings are like little crumbs that
Yeah.
would take me so long to even think of the idea to buy a house by myself, What I'm trying to say is, oh my God, I'm all over the place, just like my life. What I'm trying to say, yeah, it's like we are more on a monthly
Yeah.
planning, because it's really hard to actually go into a yearly planning.
Unless you have a really good setup. But even then, you still have no clue what the future's gonna look like. Yeah, I was in a job interview like a week ago or 2 weeks ago, and they asked me, one of the questions was like, oh, what's your, like, the 5-year question, what's your plan for the next 5 years, or what's your life gonna look like and your goals gonna look like for the next 5 years? And I just blanked. It's very difficult to create stability for yourself in the times that we're living in now. So it's very difficult to really say what my goals even are for the next 5 years. And they were like, yeah, I totally get that.
I have another question, because
Yeah.
the feeling behind in life, wouldn't you say it's more of an internal feeling
Definitely.
that rather
Like,
than external circumstances to actually go back?
Actually, no. I would say it's both, actually, because even though I know that there's a lot of pressure on myself because of maybe how I assumed my life was going to look when I was a child, and how it's different. Not to say that it's worse. Like, actually, I'm really happy my life turned out the way that it did, and it didn't turn out how I thought it would as a kid. But there's also still pressure, like, for instance, from my family, that I need to have a bit more of my shit together at this age. And yeah, I think for the world also, you still live in a system, you still have to participate, you still have to organize yourself around and within the system, and so it's both.
Well, we've internalized this feeling, but it's internal in that way, The external noise has been internalized.
Yeah.
So now it's an internal feeling of, oh, I'm behind in life. But really, it did come from an external source.
Yeah, absolutely. It didn't come from an external source, and it hasn't stopped coming from an external source. It's still coming from an external source. So my mind has been really imprinted with that belief system, but also it's still being reflected back to me that this is the case, so that I'm being viewed as in such a way that there are expectations being placed upon me.
Yeah.
And I can, I'm older now and I'm an adult, and I can choose to throw it away and be like, no. But
it's hard.
There's still a consequence to that, I'm still introduced to the consequence every day of not conforming to that whole thing.
It also feels to me that this feeling behind in life has a lot to do with age.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We can touch upon that as well, because that's a whole other conversation.
Like you mean like the fear of aging?
Not necessarily the fear, but the fact that age is connected to specific expectations. Because you said it yourself that mid-20s, you start feeling it more. So why is it that we are expected by our 30s to have our life a certain way already?
Yeah. I feel like it made more sense a bit in the previous generations. The way that everything was set up, it made more sense somehow. Like for my parents to have been married and have kids, it was way more acceptable and more normal, and they could afford it, that whole thing. But now it just doesn't make any sense. And also our views on, for instance, having a career and a relationship and children were a bit more limited and a bit more fixed way back when. And so people could just go along with it, and everything sort of added up and made sense. But now, since we've sort of broken down all of these things and we've like analyzed them, and we're now in this state of time where we're questioning the validity of all of these systems, like having a career, the concept of marriage, having children, like it's all being questioned. So it just doesn't really make any sense. And also understanding the brain more, like I just turned 25, but my brain literally just stopped developing, apparently.
Well, okay, I mean, the way that you said it is it's kind of true in the sense that your brain has completed its development, as in,
yes,
it is now a full functioning brain.
I have a big girl brain.
Now you have a big girl brain, it's fully sized.
Yeah.
But it never stops developing in the sense of, you always learn and you change. It's plastic, right? So plastic. No, that's not the right word. It has plasticity. Yeah, it has the plasticity, which means that you're always changing it. But from the biological point of view, yes, your brain now is ready. You just have a full brain now. Look at that.
Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, that's adulthood, Now I'm an adult. Now I can say it.
Yeah, I see. So it's this idea of the blueprint that, okay, this can be your life. This is the option. There you go. Take it. I guess.
There you go. Take it.
There you go. Here's your life.
No.
Please take it. Take it. No. Take it. No, take it.
It's very confronting, because by not choosing to take this idea, then you're left with the shitstorm of, what the fuck am I doing? What's this existence? Existential crisis.
Yeah, that's true.
More therapy,
That's true, because you're taking something without even questioning whether you want it or not.
A lot of people do that.
Yeah, so that creates the identity crisis, existential crisis, and a lot of repression, maybe to avoid the crisis, but then eventually midlife crisis, some kind of a crisis, because then you realize this is not what I want. But not everyone. Some people are happy with the blueprint, and I'm jealous of those people.
I feel like either way, like if you choose to go in the route of following, this order that was handed down to us generation to generation. Or if you choose to go an alternative way, an unconventional way, we all end up in the same place of like the midlife crisis, because also there's this thing of we need to expect that we're going to change, and we're going to change what we want. We're going to grow and evolve and experience life and want different things at some point. And to expect yourself to now remain the same and want the same things forever and ever and ever is very harmful. Like, we're all going to end up in that crisis point again at some point, because we'll have experienced a lot. We would have seen a lot, and
yeah,
life will just be different.
No, that's very true.
Sometimes I feel like, we're really just trying to avoid that experience by having everything sorted now or soon, so that it's fixed.
Yeah. It's this idea of control, like we already talked about. I was gonna say that I guess this feeling behind in life thing is just having certain expectations. It's about expectations at the end of the day, and those expectations have not been met.
Yeah.
But the thing is, the big question in here is, are those your expectations? Do you feel like it was your expectation, or do you feel like it was just, given to you again? Given in a sense of like, hey, you're supposed to do this, and you're like, oh yeah, like, for example, I'm sorry, but why do we go to study?
Yeah.
I'm not saying normal school. School is important, go to school. But why do you go to university?
Yeah, that's true.
It is an expectation.
Yeah.
It's a good expectation. It's not a bad one necessarily, because it gives you more opportunity, yada yada.
Mm-hmm.
But it is an expectation, so we're following an expectation.
Even the expectation that it gives you more opportunity is a bit more shaky now. Like,
yeah, in this day and age, it's true.
A lot of people don't have a university degree, but they do study in other, or they just do practice, depending what field we're talking about. Like, of course you cannot be a doctor or anything, but they do, and then there's the same opportunity, even more sometimes, actually. Somewhere else.
You get even, yeah. But it's just expectations not being met.
So how do we deal with that? Should we not have any expectations in life?
Oh my God, I don't know. I feel behind. I feel very behind.
My question is, why is like your parents having a house or about to have a kid, why is that put on a higher pedestal than what you're doing right now?
Because what I'm doing right now is being a child, apparently, according to them. Because prioritizing your joy and your well-being and your freedom are not responsible things to do in our society. From our parents. It's not responsible to do that, because you're going to end up in the fucking streets. You're going to end up homeless. Which is, to a certain degree, it's true. It is true. If I don't have any sort of direction and plan onto somehow surviving, somehow making an income, somehow having some aspirational goals, like something, not necessarily, but something, it is true that I might end up in the streets. If all I do every day is just go out, spend my parents' money, for example, even worse, let's make it worse. Imagine I ask for my parents' money, and then all I do is go out and have fun and come home and sleep, and then nothing else.
Mm-hmm.
What's gonna happen to me? Eventually, my parents are not gonna be in the pictures. But eventually, yes, that is part of it. Eventually, my parents are not gonna be here anymore to support me, and I'm just gonna be like, oh fuck, now I need to, I guess, get a job to make my own money, and then I'm gonna go get a really shitty job. One that, by shitty, I don't mean by the kind of job, I mean the pay of job. Because I personally really like being a waitress, to be honest with you, but the pay in Cyprus is like less than €5 an hour, you know?
Oh my
so
God.
that's I can barely make rent, and I'm working full time. Full time is like 8 hours nonstop, and you just make rent, and as we said,
Yeah.
And then you're in the you live the kind of life that actually in the first part of your life you have all the fun, right?
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh fuck. So this is how they see it, at least my parents.
You know, you give up one thing for the other. Like, for instance, what you're doing right now with your life is you live a very interesting life. Like, you've traveled so much.
And I'm still gonna travel, girl.
And you've experienced so much. And your life might not be as, like, stable, secure, boop, 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 as theirs might have been.
But it's more interesting.
But theirs was very limited at the time. It's way more interesting and it's way more fulfilling. But maybe to them, like, what they were going through at that time was interesting to them, and everybody's different.
Yeah.
But I don't know why we put one, like, something, a certain type of life on a pedestal and another type of life not on the pedestal, just because it's not as, you know, predictable.
That's a really good point, because let's say that that's the kind of life I've had and I end up being a waitress with a really low pay for the rest of my life. Is that so bad?
If you're having a good time.
If I go and I find like a really cute cafe that I like the people there, you know, and I enjoy going to work. Like when I was working in Armenia as a waitress, I loved going to work. It was so much. I was like, I'm here to serve you. And then the people I was working then they were like my best friends, you know. So I was really happy to work. Okay, it was a little bit tiring, but
Yeah.
But the only complaint was that, okay, I get tired, you know. Besides that, I was really happy. And if, let's say, someone chooses to have this kind of life at the end, or is even forced to because of, you know, whatever, like, if this is the life they end up having because of previous choices in you know, in their life, as long as you're enjoying yourself and you're managing somehow, I don't see why that's so bad. It's true what you say, that the life where you have a better paying job, you're more respected in the field, you know, you have aspirations and goals of like, I'm gonna become the manager of this company, or I'm gonna become this great director or this great artist. And it's like, some people don't have goals like that, and that's okay. That's okay.
If you want to live a very, you know, what people say, average life, that's just like looked down upon. But why?
Also rude. Like, what do you mean average?
What do you mean average?
Excuse me.
Do you know, having everything has its pros and cons? Yeah, like, let's say you get a really great job, you're the CEO, getting all this money. There's so much there's a type of stress that comes along with that, and if you're prepared to deal with that kind of lifestyle and the kind of stress that comes along with that, amazing. But
amazing.
If you want to be in a different kind of position where you're like traveling, you know, all the time for work, and maybe it doesn't pay as much, but you're living and getting your fulfillment out of that, there's a kind of stress that comes along with that. But if you're prepared to deal with that, all well and good.
Exactly.
And if you want to just become a parent and you take care of children and blah 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 blah, another kind of stress, you know.
If you're just a babysitter and that's all you do, that's fine. There's nothing. The only thing wrong is that maybe deep down you want something else, and that's when we really see. That's the thing. When you feel, if you're a babysitter, that's your job. You're just a regular babysitter, beep, 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 and you hate it. You hate your life because you feel like you're behind. You feel like you're not where you should be. You're not having the kind of life that you're supposed to be having. The question is it you that is really hating it, or is it the societal parental expectation?
Yeah.
Because if it's not you, if you yourself, if you really dig, you have to ask yourself these questions. You go deep and you're like, man, I'm really happy. I'm fine with taking care of these cute babies all the time and living my life. I'm happy. Then I don't feel behind in life. It's not true that I am behind in life. But if deep down you're like, oh, you know what? I always want to be, you know, I wanted to become a project manager and you know, work there and have lots of money to be able to go to like fancy restaurants and eat delicious meals. Then you might feel like, okay, I didn't do that, and I am behind. I'm not where I wanted to be yet, you know?
Yeah.
So I think it's about internal
inquiry. Yeah. Another piece I wanted to add to this was, because we're just surrounded by so much social media, we also have this now additional comparison of our peer group, our age group,
Yeah.
people that we knew in high school. And we can see what they're up to, and we can check. And then it adds this extra comparison of like, oh my God, like these days I see a lot of my...
What?
But yeah, things like that. Like even like so many of my previous classmates, like now they're having babies. People I went to high school with, babies, married. And it freaks me out, because also I don't want to do that. At least now, I can't even conceive of it in my mind. But then there's this pressure of like their life is seen as more acceptable than mine in my communities. My community back home's ideas of what your life is supposed to look like, Yeah.
I mean, okay, yeah, maybe at the end of the day we have to find people agree with our view of how life is supposed to look like. But when those people are your parents,
Mm-hmm.
and you still want their support, you want the support of your parents, You want them to be like, you know what? This is the life that is important to you. These are your values.
Yeah.
Great. I will support you any way that I can, even if it's just mentally supporting,
Yeah, like I have your back.
At the end of the day, that's the most, like, if my parents would agree like, I mean, my mom does quite a lot now. My dad still expects me to get a proper job. He keeps saying, when are you going to get a proper job?
Yeah.
And I'm like, Dad, I got one. And he's like, that's not a proper job. That's
And I feel like I need to still put more respect on my parents' name. Like they could be way more strict upon me with their perspective, but they're actually letting me do my thing. But there's still this thing of like, okay, but eventually,
eventually you're gonna get married and have kids and a house and a job,
like,
right?
Yeah, you should have a good job eventually, like get married and babies and so
babies. Give us right. You asked me how do we deal with it. I completely left that.
So how do we deal with that?
1 hour later.
I guess how to deal with it is like just this expectation. How you deal with it is figure out if it's yours or not. Yeah, because once you can figure out if the expectation is yours, then you can actually try to come up with some kind of a plan. Like, and it's gonna take long, probably. You have to give yourself a lot of time. You have to give yourself a lot of patience and time to slowly, like a little worm, go. Find support system. Find people who want to support, who are willing to support you.
And I want to add also people who are living the kind of life that you find inspiring, or that motivates you, or that like makes you feel good. And also maybe look at people's lives who are unconventional, so you can get a bit of idea that you don't need to pressure yourself to doing just one thing or being just one thing. At least that helps me.
What about feeling behind in life when actually it's your expectation? That's different.
That's different.
That's different.
That's different. That one, you need to cut yourself some slack because, life is lifing. And
life is lifing right now.
It's lifing. And like, for instance, the whole of lockdown, I can barely remember it. I feel like I've cut out 2 years of my age. I feel like I didn't experience enough to like count that as aging in a certain way. So I still sort of feel like I'm 23 or something. Yeah. It's we've gone through a lot, and need to pat yourself on the back for how far you've come in your life and how much you've already done. And
there needs to be some work done around the age expectation, because if you remove your age and you just look at the progress by itself, You know, you would be like, okay, there is progress here, hopefully. And if there isn't, then, you know, you make the progress happen. But I really think we need to remove the age expectation and then look at, okay, I've spent time here and I've done this and I'm moving, you know, there is movement. I'm not stuck somewhere. So that's the most important part. Yeah. Like, okay, yeah, maybe there are some things also I specifically desire, and I might be feeling that I'm not moving there fast enough, because feeling behind talks about speed somehow, because behind means there's something forward, and something forward and there's time or space in between, right? There's space in between, and if there's space in between, that means time. Like our understanding of space between two things is just time, really, to be honest, you know. It takes, how much time does it take for me to go to my room? That space in between, the way that I understand it is time-wise. It's very interesting also. Like, it's so this is a whole other philosophical thing, that's a whole other thing. But yeah, so like where I am now and where I was 4 years ago, that's time. Not only, and like being in Cyprus and being in Holland, that's also time. It's travel time, you know. It's so interesting.
Yeah.
So understanding that there's pressure on the time rather than on the spaces, you know. Ooh, actually, yeah. I'm just this understanding it, discovering it now. So
big brain une.
The pressure is not to be here or here. The pressure is how fast, right? It's the time element.
What comes into my mind when you speak of this stuff is like, also, we're completely missing out on the experiential part of the equation. Like, we're so concerned about getting somewhere rather than being like, okay, here I am. Because there isn't, well, I don't know if this is accurate, but the way that I see it is like, yeah, we only have this moment and now, and we're looking forward, like, oh my god, yeah. And it doesn't exist. And we're just chasing some carrot in front of our heads that just doesn't exist. And and we're looking behind at the past, which is gone. It's gone. And all we have is this moment, and I think we live our lives staring at the future under the impression that it's guaranteed and that we're even going to be alive tomorrow. And there should still be some aspect of you know, like really being in this moment now and really reveling in the fact that you're here now through a series of trials and tribulations, but here you are now. You're living a life. That's beautiful.
I guess it's hard to see the beauty of the moment when you've set up the expectation of what is beautiful, what beautiful is supposed to be.
Yeah.
So
that's true.
You're constantly comparing it to that, and all you can see is like, now is not beautiful. Now is not beautiful. And that is such a violent thing to say also, you know? It's like denying your existence in a way, denying this moment in a way. That's what I always see. It's like, the reason why you have to appreciate the moment right now is because otherwise you're just denying your whole existence if you're saying, no, now is...
Yeah.
And sometimes
now is not it.
Sometimes now sucks, for me personally as well. But I still can't deny those moments, because then I'm just denying such a huge part of existence.
Yeah.
So you gotta be like, yeah, now it sucks, but it's beautiful. Like, the sucky is okay.
But here I am.
But here I am, and that's...
Here I am.
That's where it is, and that's where... So yeah, it's hard to appreciate it now when all you can think about, yes, but that there is the beauty stuff. That there is like, it's just it's also a comparison element a lot. So right now, where I am right now is not as good, and is not as beautiful, and is not as perfect as where I could be. But where you could be doesn't even exist. We're comparing our lives to something that does not exist, and the guarantee of it existing is not as high as you think.
Not as high as you think, because if you were to be dead tomorrow, could you say that you were satisfied?
Boom.
And if it's a no, it's a, you know, it's understandable also, but it's something to question. That not being satisfied right now. Yeah. Are we ending this episode on this very
depressive note?
Oh my god, my battery just died. So
I guess we are.
I guess we talking about death. My battery dies. Okay.
Except if you want me to do a monologue of something more positive, tell me. I'm ready.
Do it. Do the monologue.
If there is only now, and now is, it's a fact that it is, and the future is not a fact that is, as now is, then in that case, whether now is horrible or wonderful, the ising, the being basically, which is the is, it is, the being of it is in itself perfect.
Wow.
Did that make sense? Bueno. Bye from Jordi. Jordi says bye.
Bye.